Okay, so next up, freehand camo, probably the hardest thing that you're going to end up doing. There's loads of different variables in this, and you'll get 100 people tell you 100 different ways of doing it. Personally, this is just the way I do it, so I'm going to give you a quick run through of the basics and things like that. Now, normally you would pick the paint you absolutely love, okay, that you're used to using and you know how it's going to react. Not what I'm about to do, which is use a paint I've never used before in my life, okay. Now, I've used these once for testing and that was it, and to be honest, they worked quite well. They're quite thick and gloopy, but for the colours that we need for this, which is commonly known as like the desert scheme or the midstone scheme, you have the Azores blue on the underside, which we've done already, exactly the same as we did with the Harrier and the underside of the other Spitfire, toned down, and then that little bit of bleaching work. We've masked up, so we've done a little bit of hard edge masking just to cover up those areas because we're going to be doing freehand, okay. But these are the only colours I've got, so I'm going to have to sort of risk it. Now, when you're doing freehand camo, a couple of things with it. First of all, it will give you a more worn look to your model. So if you're doing something like we're doing here, which is for desert, by doing it freehand will give you a more feathered edge, which will give you a more realistically worn look to your paintwork. Okay, the downside to it is you're going to have a lot more control over your airbrush than perhaps you normally have. Now, normally I would use this. This is my Infinity airbrush that we've used in previous ones. Now this little thing down the back is where it all works, because what you can actually do is dial in the amount of paint you want to come through, okay. So when you using it just like this, no problem, but you can lock the trigger by pushing the button and it only goes back that far, which makes a very small precise thing to go round. Now I know this is quite a little bit of a luxury, so we won't be using that one. We're going to be using this one, which doesn't have it, okay. So you can't actually lock the trigger into any position. You also have air, all air or nothing, whereas with this one you might, for here you can have a little bit of air, or the more you push down you can actually adjust the airflow, which comes in quite handy, because if you're getting a little bit speckly and it's getting away from you, you can come off the air a little bit and do it in. This airbrush doesn't allow you to do that because you don't have, it's either all or nothing, there's nothing in between, okay. So there you go, it's a little bit of a thing for all of us. So exactly the same as we said with doing the other Spitfire with the hard edge camo, we're going to put down the lightest colour first. So in our case we've got this what they call the midstone. So we give this a good mix. Now this paint is pretty much really thick, like gel, okay. So what we need to do is to thin it a little bit more than we normally do. So what we're going to do is come up with their thinners. So we've got some extra some thinners like this. Now this is a bit different, it's white and milky, so we're going to start with a 50-50 mix just down in the colour cup, taking our brush, and we're just going to give it a good old mix around. Now I know for a fact, having used this a minute ago, that a 50-50 mix is a little bit too thick for this particular type of paint. So as you can see, we've got it in like that. So all we're going to do is just make it a little bit thinner again. All right, so we're just coming in and we're going to about another 50% in there, okay, and then a very good mix all around again, and this gives us your working paint for putting down. Good old mix. Okay, so move these out of the way, check our flow, see what we've got. Happy how it's coming out. So we have our instructions to hand, exactly as we did the last time. We've got them down here. We're going to orientate it the same way, okay, and we're just going to go through. So there's a lot of this to go on. So what we'll do is we're literally just going to follow everything that's on here and go slightly bigger. So this is the lighter colour, all right, so roughly popping it down. It doesn't matter if we go too far, or if we go slightly in the wrong place, we can just carry on. Again, looking a little bit wet, we stop, cut to air, so not pulling back at all, and we just dry it off. Or you just move off to somewhere else. So we just do up the side here, the top. Okay, and we're just building up a light coat all over this, and we've got some more going over the nose, just round everywhere. Okay, and we're taking back that pre-shading just to the point where it goes. Okay, and when it disappears, we'll simply stop. Okay. I'm just going round. Okay. And just remember to go further than you need to, okay? Okay, with your edges of the model, just naturally go over. You want to come in about 45 degrees. I'm just doing the fronts. That way it will wrap around nice and even. Okay, we're just building up this colour all over. So again, we're getting near masking tape, so we're just going to take it a little bit easy. Nothing too much in those areas, just keeping it nice and subtle. Just down in there. This one just runs slightly to the rear, so we're just going to take it down there. Okay, I just have to flip this over so I can see what's going on with the tail. Okay, just being a little bit clever on how we hold this. Okay, so we're happy now with this. Just taking a little bit more down here, and this one comes in from the back. It sort of goes up the tail. Okay, just like so. Bringing it around. And the great thing is with acrylic paint, as you can see, is it dries so quick, so we don't have to worry too much like we would if we were enamel, so we can handle it in a moment in certain places and we won't have a problem. Looking wet, cat into air. And a little bit over. Making sure we all cover all those areas in full. Make sure your paint goes right to the edges. Okay, double check how far it comes over, things like that. So the pre-shading is just about holding in there. Okay, now as you can see we've got a lot left in here. It goes quite a long way, this paint, so what we're going to do is just going to tip it back in. Just like so. All of it in there, get as much back in there as you can because we haven't changed the colour at all, and all we've done is thin it, and let's face it, it's going to go in your airbrush and get thinned anyway. Okay, so what we're going to do, taking some Tamiya flat white, we're just going to put in a couple of drops, okay, about 50% of what we've got in there because we've got quite a bit running around the colour cup. In with air thinners, thin it right down quite heavily. Okay. Just like so, and we want this to be really wet and milky. Okay, so now we've got to get rid of what's in here, so we've got to blow all of that out. So just do it until you hear and see the difference coming out of your brush, and you can probably hear the difference immediately. And then all we're going to do is just literally going to touch in some little spots. So all we go in centres of panels, just trying to keep it a little bit random. So all we're doing is what we did before. not trying to do anything mass clever here. We're just trying to break it all up just a little bit. Because all we're trying to do is knock this back just a little bit, just to break it up. There we go, just like that. So unfortunately we'll tip that, which you could obviously always chuck it into a colour cup if you wanted to. Just because it's quite wet, we're just going to have a quick mop round, do a very fast colour change. So we just pulled all of that out. I'm coming in with standard thinners. My Vallejo, which is my sort of thinner of choice for using these paints. Okay, down into those. Blow all of that out. Just down in there, and then quick rub around all of your airbrush, clean it all up. Remember, just keep it as clean as you can. And look at that, quick colour change like that, and it's absolutely sparkling, okay? Making sure the needle is all clean. You want to make sure you've got no build up down in the end whatsoever, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, now the fun bit. So what we're going to do, we're taking the darker colour now, give it a good old shake. Okay, straight away, straight in with their thinners. We're not going to need much of this because, as we know, it goes quite a long way, and also we're only colouring in some more little areas, so we're just doing a little bit in there like that, and then we're just going to have a look, see what we get. It's a nice chocolate brown. Okay, immediately it looks a bit thick to me, so what we're going to do is knock it back a bit more. And another good mix. Now, we've got paint down everywhere on this, so we won't have to worry about it moving too much. If you were going neat onto plastic with quite thin paint, what you can end up getting is spidering and things going completely wrong. So, for instance, if we were down in here, okay, and we were trying it and you were coming in, so immediately when you try it, you paint, you get the spidering effect like this. Because we've got paint on this already, like down here, when you come in and put it down, it has a hard time sticking. But as you might be able to see, you're quite close, you can get it to go if you go just a little bit too much. So what we need to do is turn down the air pressure. So you just turn it down a little bit and pull on the trigger until you get a balance of paint coming out when you need it, as well as obviously enough to atomize it so it's not looking too speckly. All right, now that's one of those things you're just going to have to play with until you sort of get used to. All right, now what you're going to do with this is do very, very light coats as go around. We're going to build it up nice and slowly, so we're not trying to do anything in one pass. You're not trying to colour. It may be you'll do 2 or 3 before you can even see it going on. All right, so what we'll do, we'll just pick an area on the wing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this little area at the front. So we just a little bit of paint. We're just doing a little bit coming up, okay? And we're just doing it so we see, just need a little bit more air. Okay, and then we're just going to walk it down. Sorry, got a tiny bit. Got bubbles appearing in the top, that's where it's back feeding in, so just make sure the front is all done up nice and tight. Okay, you might be able to start to see it, the lines coming on as you work your way round. But as you say, it's nothing that's too major immediately to start with. Also, you can work out exactly where you're going with your paint work, okay? Okay, and we're just going to now touch in those areas. So we're doing little circles, and when it's looking wet, we go off completely somewhere else, and when it's looking wet all over, we just cut into air. I'm just going to dry it off, and what we're doing for the moment, just putting in the basic shape that we want, okay? Same thing on those leading edges. Okay, so now we've got a rough idea of how it is and where it's going in. What we want to do now is start to sort of make the little lumps and bumps that all come with it. So what we want to do is always shoot into the middle. You don't want to be sort of shooting like this, because otherwise you're going to make it fall on the outside. It's going to speckle. So what we're going to do for the moment is just this and this edge here. We're just going to sharpen up this side just a little bit. So we move in just a little bit closer and we go around there. Then we're going to do the other side. Okay, and the other bit. And now we're just going to do a little bit of filling in. Just down there. Okay, so now what we need to do is walk this line exactly how it is. Alright, so we know it's got to sort of come quite a bit over this way a bit. So we're just going to increase it over this side again, taking our time. And we're just moving that entire line over to one little bit here. Alright, so as you can see, you've still got the pre-shading and everything all hanging in there, but just take your time with it, relax, sort of enjoy it. I know it's probably a little bit difficult when you're doing it for the first time. Every now and again, same as you did before, pump out your airbrush, clean it all out, make sure you're happy with how it's coming through. Alright. So when you're happy with it like that, what you can do is you can then start to work in other areas, start to spread around. But again, as soon as it's looking wet, move away. So I'm quite happy with how it is in there. So we're just going to come around the bottom. And what we're going to do is just lightly go around different areas. Okay. And it should be handleable on the other wing, okay? So we're just going to come down here. So again, lightly do it. We're not trying to change anything right off the bat. Okay, so again, we're just going to move this over here so I can see how it goes. So we know it sort of has a swoop. But you see how I'm rotating it, so it's always the edge I'm shooting into the middle. Okay, so then this one comes over here and it's going to go round down in here. Just lightly building up as we go. Now you could always draw this all beforehand and then colour in afterwards. Just be careful what you use, because you can end up with a situation where it's very hard to overcoat it. So if you use pencil, something else like that, it can be a bit of a problem going round it all. So we're just going to pull this down here and around a bit. Okay, so goes round the back here. The entire of this wing area. Yeah, we can just do a block pass in there just to colour it all in. Okay, I'm just going to rotate it so it's all with me. Alright, and then okay, just keeping on top of it. Looking wet, cutting to air. Okay, just gonna extend it along a little bit now. Alright, then we've got this little guy that comes down in here. So to start with, we're just going to put in a simple area. Off, pump down. Okay. Getting a little bit cocky with it now, so I'm speeding up a little bit, as you can probably see, and it's looking very wet, which is going against my own rule. I'm just trying to speed it all up for you, but as I say, you shouldn't. You should dry, keep it nice and steady, and build it up in layers like this. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now, just dry back this one up here, and we're just going to give it some shape. So we know it's got some little lumps and bumps, so you can do little tiny balls. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just go up over the back of the fuselage. Got a tiny little bit we want to do at the front as well, thinking about it. So we're just going to take a tiny little bit around the front. So again, it's only a tiny spot, so don't go in too heavy. Just take it up, step at a time, cut to air, like now, and then more paint, then air, and just build it up nice and slowly. Okay, so we're going to put this back one on as well, so it comes over the top. Nice and steady. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle now, sort of lining all this up. So just colour in. Up over the back. Again, we'll tidy it all up afterwards. Alright, so we're looking quite good all down there. So what we're going to do now is just round the back edge. Top, the back. But when you're dealing with tiny little areas like this where it's a small, it's very easy to get carried away and flood the area. So just keep it dry and then add a layer. Go dry, add a layer, okay? And just literally work your way around the model just like that. Otherwise you're going to end up with a big splat and wrecked all your work, okay? But also try to work with your pre-shading. Just down there. So we just got these little guys down the back now. And this side I do remember is all in the middle. So we do one and then go back to the other one. Looking wet. Go off. Okay, then again you can add all those lumps and bumps in afterwards. Just keep it shooting inwards. A little bit just down here to take care of. Okay, and there we have it for a very quick job. Obviously what you would do now in reality is tip this back. Okay, we're all good in there. Same thing again. And considering that's the first time I've ever used that paint, I'm actually quite impressed with it. It does work quite nice. So we're going to re-thin 50-50 again, in with the white paint. And so you won't have to go mad with this because it's a darker colour. You don't need quite as much white paint in there. Okay, remix completely. So we're going to have a heavy clash of paint here, so you want to keep it very thin. Okay, the stronger the difference in colour in paint like we've got here, the thinner you want to make it. That way it will bleach it rather than cover it. Okay, so there we go, just knock them off. Blow that through so you'll hear and see the difference straight away. There we go. And we're just going to do exactly what we've done all the way through this, is just to lighten up those little panels. So same thing again. Just speed this up. And there we have it. So we stick that down there. It's all rather wet still, so we have to be a little bit careful. But with the effect we're trying to get with this one is to give it a very heavy bleached look to it all. Now remember, nothing ever looks good without marking, so bear with me on that one. Hopefully we get this one all marked up for the reveal. Okay, but there we have completely freehand, no problem at all. Secret with it is patience, okay? Just go really, really slowly. And I know I've showed you things like weathering and doing things like with it, but it just gives it adds a little bit of dimension to it. Some people would think it's too much and you want to do it down, but this is quite a nice one. We've got a good mixture of bleaching and things like that. Further washes and weathering techniques, which you can get on to a little bit later on, that will work really, really well because it's got good, strong weathering down there. When you start to cover it up with washes and pigments and things like that, they will stand through. But there we go, that's the basics of doing freehand. As you can see, it is very nice and soft. When you compare it with hard edge, as you see, you get both of them like this. You can see it's a completely different ball game. Hard edge really looks at this, looks more softer, natural, things like that. And certainly for the underside, you can see the bleaching going on. Okay, basically done the same, but it's just the different ways of doing it. But really, that is it. That's all the little techniques you need to do. Now you can go on and you can push through and learn different sort of techniques and various things like that. Now on the DVD here, as you can see, or if you're on the main site, there's a couple of full builds where we've got actually, you know, about full weathering in detail, full paint jobs, explaining it in depth as I go through the full build, which we've taken snippets from and put here. So they'll give you a great insight into it. So next up, we're going to talk you through all the troubleshooting. What can go wrong, where and when.